Welcome to Activate Success, Tips, Tools, and Insights to be a leader in your niche. I'm Sandra Horton. I'm wonderfully aside my beautiful co-author, Dr. Sujata Ives. We are excited today. I'm going to have Dr. Sujata Ives introduce her. This is our episode number 3. So we are going through a series of wonderful 15 different chapters in our book. So let's dive in. Let's introduce ourselves, and then I'll go through a little bit more of the introduction.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to whoever's watching us today. I'm Dr. Sujata, and I'm the doctor that's known to connect the dots. I am current president of the Maryland Career Development Association, international chair of the American Counseling Association's International Committee, and co-chair of programming at the Asia Pacific Career Development Association. Now, I have a voice that wiggles and jiggles a little bit because my vocal cords do not close. But despite this challenge, I get up and I show up. If I can do this, so can you.
Oh, I love that. Thank you, Sujata, so much for that wonderful introduction to yourself. And I always say I love to lean in when you speak because the power is in the pause. So this episode, again, this is our 3rd episode. I'm Sandra Horton. I have 25 plus years, more than that actually, and working through change management in leadership development. And I'm known as a success change catalyst. I love to create pathways of change for leaders and organizations around the globe. I'm also certified as MA in leadership, EQI practitioner. So today when we get into the emotions and feelings, I think this is a key powerful place, a passion of mine, as well as certified in change management. So I'm excited to be here, Dr. Sujata. Let's share what we're going to talk about today. In our book, which has launched, Activate Success, now an international best-selling book. Woohoo! Let's get those hands. Let's give some claps for that. We wanted to come to you, our beautiful readers, just to kind of share a little bit more about the book and how it really can move your life forward and to activate success. So this is our segment 3, as I said earlier, and we're going to focus on chapter 3. And this particular chapter is all about thrive through relationships. Those are powerful 3 words, thrive through relationships. So it's going to give you a magic formula for effective communication and conflict resolution. So we want to help you, all of you, to really get along a little bit better in the workplace and to really hopefully stop that quiet quitting, or for some, could be a loud quitting as well. Especially we see this every day in the work that we do, for myself in healthcare and doing consulting, and with Dr. Sujata working in your counseling practice as well. Let's dive in now through relationships. What does that mean? What are the activators? And let's start this wonderful conversation.
It's been my experience that in the workplace, people do not leave their jobs. They've spent the money on their degrees. It costs so much money to go to universities to get those degrees. They're excited they've applied for the job. They're not leaving the job. They're leaving people. So people leave people. And that's where our focus is for chapter 3 here in Activate Success. And we make sure that we address this component early in the book, because we want everybody to understand and learn how to get along through effective communication and through conflict resolution. We have given you, through our research, we've given you a magical formula that we want you to adopt. It will change your life. It's a game changer. We want you to connect the dots between feelings, your values, and your stressors. It is golden. It's a technique that works for effective communication and conflict resolution. Because, like I said, people are not leaving their salaries. They need the money. They need that work to make their personal life and their families successful. So what they're doing is they're leaving values because the values don't mesh with their own. If your values don't line up with the workplace or with the people in the workplace, then you're going to engage in drastic behaviors such as quiet quitting, loud quitting, even. But, let's face it, who has not bumped into a person or, something at the workplace that's been arrogant or controlling or deceptive, right? Because withholding information when you should be knowledge sharing is also ineffective communication. So people are bringing themselves and their behaviors to the workplace, and these behaviors contain minor personality flaws, the schema, the conditioning, right? And if you're really unlucky, then sometimes you witness major personality flaws or pervasive or tragic personality flaws. And so rather than quit and then get another job and find the same thing going on in your new job, we want you to get these skills, upskill yourself so that you can manage conflict resolution, so that you can have effective communication. And incidentally, in this book, we offer you that little section in each chapter to help you to emphasize how important this is.
I think that's a wonderful start. And thank you, Sujata, so much, because everyone really, you're going to be interacting with people. And one of the keys for effective leadership is to have effective communication, isn't it? And it's really interesting. And perhaps for yourself, you're maybe new to a job and you're coming in and you're meeting all these new people and you're listening to them and you're maybe not certain about the jargon. So one of the key things to effective communication is having an understanding of clear words, to be very clear in your languaging and not use the jargons. Because I know I've had that experience of walking into a new organization. I'm starting out fresh. I was in my consulting role and it was like, what are all these jargon words? So one of the things that we really highlight here is just being mindful, being very much aware of that, use understandable words, and also seek to restate and reframe instead of assuming. Now, this is a key piece here for all of us. How many times have you been in a dialogue with someone else and you're sharing, but your mind is thinking something? We need to stop and then restate what we're hearing, and then having the opportunity to really understand that language that's happening for us in our own mind, really ensuring that we have that clarity of what the other person is speaking to us. And I just really want to anchor that one in and really say that this is an important piece for us. For myself, I always stop and observe myself in that moment to restate, reframe, and not assume. And also respond in a fair instead of judging way. And as a leader, we'll go through different chapters later on about conscious leadership, but that important understanding, and we shared in the earlier segment number 2 about understanding our schema, understanding why we tend to unfortunately use some of these biases. So we have to become very cognizant of ourselves and our verbal communication. And for me, Sujata, one of the things that I've found working with individuals is to observe myself and to respond and not react. Have you had a recent, opportunity to unfortunately maybe react versus respond, maybe in your last meeting where things may have gotten heated? Because we can do that so easily from our mind, how we just our habits, we need to understand those pieces of effective non-verbal communication that can actually trigger to have a reaction versus a response. A response is more logical. It's not so emotionally driven, where a reaction is automatic. And we say the amygdala hijack, as we always say on these things. And we have to be able to observe ourselves and just stop that. So how do we do this, Sujata, in our everyday life? How do we actually work and communicate more effectively is what? To look at the nonverbal cues. So I'm watching Dr. Sujata, and some of the things that we can listen and observe is our tone, our voice. So as Dr. Sujata said in the very beginning, her voice may wiggle, which I love, but I lean in. So I'm listening for the tonality, a low tone, an appropriate facial expression has a different impact than if I was like this. Or, there's different impressions and expressions that we can come. Our body stance. I mean, these are things that we know, but do we make a point of observing ourselves and others to have more effective communication? So I wanted to just take that moment. So we need to notice all of these points and more, because there's so many things that we take in. There's a lot of stimuli that come in. The one thing we haven't talked about, though, Sujata, is the importance about eye contact. And for some cultures, eye contact may not be received well. So it can be actually seen as disrespectful. So we're focusing on those things that we know are culturally safe, that we know are received well, which is our tone, our expressions, our cadence, and the speed, I think, are all really powerful things. And just becoming more mindful. Sujata, did you want to say anything about that? Because I think that's an important piece for us just to kind of have a moment on.
Yes. Thank you so much. So beautifully stated. We have these 3 pillars that weave through this book. And what Sandra just talked about is it all starts with you. So it's self-discovery. Really, you can even tape yourself to see what your behavior is, your eye contact, the tones, and the cultural piece is huge because you need to know your audience. You must behave in the ways that are culturally acceptable to that culture. So here in the Western Hemisphere, for Canada and North America, eye contact is imperative. It shows confidence to the person. It shows respect. But as Sandra said, in the Eastern Hemisphere, that may not necessarily be the case. Watch for these 3 pillars that go through our chapters of self-discovery, change readiness, and sustainable impact.
Thank you, Sujata. And I think that's really important. I think a lot of people, especially in our workplaces, we're so diverse, aren't we? Which is a beautiful opportunity for all of us as leaders. But at the same time, if we're not aware of our nonverbal communication, we're now really focusing just on verbal, we can get ourselves into a bit of a trouble. So I think the big message here and the key takeaway is to become more self-aware. There's so much toxicity in the workplace right now, and I would say it's preventable. It really is preventable. And I think by us taking these steps, understanding ourselves, as you said, going through self-discovery and really knowing who we are and understanding some of those biases, some of those reactions versus response ways that we bring to the world, to our leadership, and to really introspect, take the time to observe ourselves in those key situations, because sometimes we do make choices, and unfortunately, I don't like right or wrong choices, but maybe choices that aren't the best for us or for our relationship in that work space. And what happens is it can lead to conflict, and it can lead to us wanting our own needs met versus the needs of that greater group. And I think that's a key piece too, that we need to be mindful of our words, to control our emotions, to choose options that work for all. And if we don't, for some leaders, they actually can even escalate where they're so unfortunately reactionary, that it can lead to violence. It can on the other extreme lead to microaggressions. And for women, that's a big thing, is the microaggressions. It's that quietness of that ineffective communication that can lead to many women actually choosing to work at home. And one of the things that we've really brought into the book is around effective communication and resolving conflicts. We can only change ourselves. We can't change others. We can make better choices for ourselves to be more responsive versus reactionary. And I think those are all key pieces that we can bring to our workplace to build thriving relationships, knowing that it's only our perspective that we have and that we need to understand other people's perspectives. And they have a saying in psychology, which I love. Sujata, you said this as a practitioner, that the light bulb has to want to be changed. And this means that a person has to be willing to change. So choose yourself, choose to change, be that light bulb, have that moment of observing yourself, introspection, then choosing how you want to engage with others, because that leads into our change readiness. If we are not open to be able to actually change, nothing's going to change. We write that in that great quote in the book. So on a small scale, we know there's things that we can do, and that employees, as an example, if you're say in a lunchroom, and this has happened, I've seen it, witnessed this actually, there's many things that can happen to us when people interact with us. And one of the things that I found quite interesting, Sujata, is something as simple. And I'm going on a new area here, Sujata. I'm leading us over into kind of our listening skills, but importantly is understanding that our actions can have impact on people and that all things are preventable. Think about when people leave a messy lunchroom. Does it irritate you or not? Yeah, it can. And it's like, well, why is that bothering me? It's because there's a value that's missing there. And if you value tidiness or cleanliness or people actually being attentive to you and listening, active listening can be a value as well. These are all things that come up for us, and we've brought to the book about what you can do to build stronger relationships. So again, it really comes to anchor, like for us, to look at our heart and our mind and being able to connect them. Because sustainable workplaces really require us to have all of us present, because we bring all of ourselves into these moments. And as I say, there's the three different areas. We have the head as a heart and our gut brains. There's the two parts of us. There's the front and the back brain. And when I was speaking earlier about being reactionary, guess where we are? Back brain, not the front brain. So we have to get curious, and we have to really focus on the opportunity to listen to all parts of ourselves, to become, as we said earlier, to build these stronger relationships. So the process that we're bringing through this book is about empathetic communication, being watchful of the verbal and the nonverbal communications. And it can truly help you forge more clear, more transparent, more authentic understanding between yourself and someone else. And there are many internal active listening skills that you can develop for yourself. The book has some wonderful discussion points in there. I'm always going like, go back to the book. It's amazing. And it really talks about how we can fully focus on our internal active listening through intentionally listening to both the front and the back brain, and understanding that our back brain will cloud our decision making. It's much more responsive. And so we have to be able to stop in that moment and actively listen and practice and not interrupt ourselves, because we can do that. And we also, unfortunately, in some relationships, can interrupt others while we're trying to perhaps not actively listen, which is what we need to do. I know you want to jump in. Let's go.
You're doing a great job here, honestly. It's just beautifully put, and the book has tips, tools, and insights on everything Sandra just told.
No, thank you, Sujata. And where is this all going? Like, why is this important to you to be listening to today? And how do you take this and apply it? And this is why we're here. We just want to share some new insights with you, or perhaps just a reminder of things that you may or haven't really looked at in the more recent past. So we want you to get present And why we're doing this is the big piece here. This is how to build and thrive in your relationships. It's understanding all of these connection pieces. It's understanding how if we build our self-awareness, which is that part of that key pillar, self-discovery is all about self-awareness. We must become cognizant of our communications. Think about that lunchroom disturbance where people maybe perhaps are leaving things out and you're really getting angry and you're like, why am I getting angry? It's because there is a magic formula that you need to understand. And this is the foundational piece. So please make sure you write this out and we're going to take you into some actions. It's all about feelings, values, stressors, formula. What is all of this? Well, it's a way of looking and processing, and it's going to take you 21 days to build this habit. But when you do, your life, your leadership, everything will change fundamentally. And you'll be able to perform things in all your jobs so much more easily. This is a key thing. And if we understand our feelings, if we understand where they're coming from, we understand what happens if they're not there, we don't register them as someone that this is a key for me, then we can lead to conflicts. And that's not a great place to be. And they're usually personality conflicts when these things aren't clearly defined.
Again, this has to do with self-discovery. If somebody irritates you at work, the first place you're going to go is this back brain, and that's okay. This is the default. So let's see how emotions work. Mm-hmm. So emotions are back here in the limbic system. There are more than 400 emotions, and you can jump into the literature and read about Ekman's studies that he did nationally and culturally for exactly which emotion is displayed when, which emotions are universal, which emotions are cultural. So identifying the exact feeling is very important. Why? Because every feeling has a different solution. You see, feeling disappointed has a different solution than if you feel left out. So it's critical. And in the book, we ask you to make a feelings list. You can even keep a feelings log. When am I feeling these feelings? And then at the end of the week, evaluate. Take an assessment of yourself. Where am I feeling these feelings? What are the common most feelings during the week? Where and with whom? Then what happens when you have these feelings is anger. So we want you to know that anger is a secondary emotion. The feelings are there first. The feelings come first. Anger then is displayed. And again, it's okay. You're in your default part, but we invite you, we encourage you, we urge you to take control of the self through self-discovery, that you can self-lead first. See, that's the difference between this book and other leadership books. We're asking you to introspect. We're asking you to ask yourself, what's resonating inside of me that's causing these feelings to erupt? And once you make that connection to your values, it's a values breach. Now you can bring it from here to here, this frontal lobe, for executive functioning, decision making, problem solving, responsive instead of this reactive brain.
So powerful, so powerful. And, the one thing that kind of comes up for me too, Sujata, is how our actual emotions are working. And, there's a lot of things that do happen for us from on the inside that we see externally vocalized? And are there particular, like we talk about the cycles or steps of how anger actually shows up, maybe just share a little bit about that. Because I think that's a powerful learning for others. And it is in the book.
Yes, absolutely. Anger as a secondary emotion has its own cycle. And it's an anger cycle that you're going to go through these steps. Just like during grief and death, there's the Kubler-Ross grief cycle, these steps. And that's just how our brain works. Because what does the brain do? First of all, it's a remarkable organ that learns. But 24/7, it judges, perceives, and senses. And it just repeats through using these brain structures like the limbic system, the amygdala, and so forth. So it's taking you through these cycles because it takes time to bring it from the back brain to the front brain internally. As you actively listen to what's inside of your head brain, heart brain, and gut brain, feel yourself going through these steps, because the first thing anger is going to do is start the step of retaliation, revenge. Why did this person do this to me? Evil intent is assumed, right? You're still in the back brain. And then as time passes, as the days pass, as the weeks pass, you find yourself here in the frontal lobe. That anger dissipates. The rational thinking takes over from fixed thinking, that fixed, rigid thinking, to the growth thinking. Maybe this person had a bad day. Is there something I can do to help this person? See, this book contains new models. We have to bring these new models. We don't want you to get stuck in this fixed thinking, the back brain, the limbic system. After you go through these steps, feel your feelings. That's perfectly normal. We're not asking you to suppress those feelings. We're not asking you to suppress the anger. Feel it. Go through it. But then bring it to the frontal lobe.
Oh, and I love that, Sujata. And I'm going to jump in this because I think to move forward in this area, particularly around our feeling words. So here's a couple of actions that you can do now to really move your leadership yourself and really gain some more self-discovery. First is to create a list of feelings words. What I mean by that is just write out your feelings. So what are some feelings that come up from you? This simple as sad, happy, angry. Just write those down. And I want you to look and write down on that piece of paper. The word on the left-hand side would be the feeling. And then write down when and where do those feelings actually show up. And then put that on that sheet. And this is really, really important. And as you're doing this, do it for at least, a couple days, if not a whole week. It's interesting how different things will show up in your actual work world. And when you do this, understand that every feeling has a different solution. And for some, maybe we've been so in our brain, so our habits are just to share and respond a certain way. So this whole introspection is to be able to observe ourselves and find new ways, new solutions to respond to these feelings, and understand those values are attached in there as well. And this is why we're doing this. So as an example, if you're feeling sad, will be a different solution than if you're feeling, as Sujata said earlier, feeling left out. They're all different ways. And we call this human communication, this way of active listening and also resolving conflicts, really is what we call our work science, because it is science, isn't it? It's a work science. It's comprised of all parts of us. And let's connect all the dots between all of these things, which is the feelings, the values, and the stressors. So we're asking you to do some work now with the feelings. Get your list, do that now. And then let's connect this. So how do these all link up? Why is this important for this chapter 3? And I feel this is a foundational piece, Sujata, that when people understand this, that feelings come first, the values are attached, and the stressors if we don't understand these pieces. So at the end of each chapter, we give you reminders of these pieces. I want you to know that we're going to support you through the book to identify all of these pieces. Because if a value is missing, and this is important, what happens to you? You get ill feelings, and that can lead to your stressors. I'm going to purposely slow that down because I think this is key. I don't want people to miss it. If a value is missing, you're going to have some ill feelings, and that's going to potentially lead to your stressors. So this is what we call our genius information. This is that magic, that gold, that nugget. Take it in, and I want you to really write that down. Understand the links between your feelings, those values, and the stressors, because we're in this automatic creating of these habits. This is the new formula that you need to bring into your life. Out of all of the feelings that are possible, the key activators for success, and you probably may have guessed this through all of this work, is empathy and appreciation. So as you're doing your list, did empathy show up? Did appreciation show up in some of those ways? We need to understand that we can focus on those to activate our success. So I'm going to stop there, Sujata, and offer what are your thoughts on this, and maybe we can kind of dive a little bit more into the whole values piece, and knowing that I know we have lots to share, and so I'm trying to keep it as succinct as I can for my side. And I think that's the importance, though. We can't overstate how important understanding your feelings come first. Yeah. And it's because if you're missing a value, there's going to be stressors, there's going to be reactions. And what happens if we don't address them? It can lead to a lot of things like burnout, which has happened to me.
Yeah. And just to wrap this up, because Sandra, you've just put this beautifully. We want you to take this information and build on it. This getting started chapter, the chapter 1, the chapter 2, the essential questions, that's going to be so cathartic for you, because you're going to discover things about yourself when you bring this narrative of who you are, where you're going, how you get there, how you stay there. And we want you to use this formula to improve yourself, for growth. It's not about he or she makes me feel this way. It's about what can I learn and bring that empathy ethic. Maybe this person can use my help. Maybe I can be the light in the workplace, right? So don't quit. Use common sense. If you're gravely ill, then you have to do what you have to do. But we're just speaking generally. If you quit, go to someplace else, might be worse than what you have now. So learn those lessons from the people that you like and the people that you don't care for.
Thank you so much. And that really resonates. I think that's going to resonate for a lot of the listeners today and the readers of the book, because we all have to get and build relationships with those that can perhaps come a little more easily. And the greatest lessons that I have learned, Sujata, is from those people who were different than myself. And that was so wonderful because I'm open to that learning. So it comes back again, really to know ourselves, to know our values, and to drive into that. You talked about the empathy ethic, and there's a couple things you can do. And we're always about offering opportunities here for everyone, the possibility here to bring empathy ethic, which is a way of being. It's not just, I'm going to have empathy today. It's like, no, I actually embrace empathy, because our world is amazing. There's so much abundance. Success is infinite. And even just being able to have that outlook will activate and accelerate your success exponentially. Here's a script that you can use to help support yourself in your leadership. And it will help you understand someone through impartiality and fairness. Write these out now, because they're very important questions, things that you can offer. Tell me in your words what happened. So that's the first opportunity, first sentence, to write down and have the opportunity to share if you're really truly wanting to build and live with this empathy ethic. The next one is, what were your feelings at that time? Next one, how did this situation affect you? Who else did this affect? And what do you want to do now? So these are all powerful questions that you can bring in to help support you to have not only an empathy ethic, but build that solid, thriving relationship. For the listener, the reader, taking these and applying them in their work in the next week, I feel would be absolutely powerful, and it would be really interesting to get some responses back to how much new information that they would receive from someone else. And would they actually see, and I do believe they would see, amazing elevation of their relationships.
Exactly. Beautifully put. And for the sake of time, we wish that we could continue this conversation longer. And I'd love to do a second session on just this chapter sometime. But we certainly encourage you to grow, bring it from the fixed to the growth mindset, and flourish at the workplace as well as in your personal life.
Thank you so much, Sujata. And as we conclude this, we've offered a lot of great content today. This is a very robust chapter in the book. There's opportunities that we've provided you to take a moment, take a pause, to observe ourselves, to really look at how we're communicating, how we can communicate more effectively. We've provided our amazing the feelings, values, and stressors formula. Take time, do your feelings, write them down, write where they show up, how do they show up, and then make that in the moment right now conscious decision to be able to take that to your work. How can you bring all this to your work? Because we want to improve the relationships in your workplace. That's ultimately what we're hoping and supporting you to do through this. So what is next? Well, our book is live in Amazon, and I know it's also through Ingram Sparks and a whole bunch of different other areas as well, which is exciting. But for right now, at Amazon, you can pick up, just put in Activate Success, or you can put in our names as well. And you can go to our website at www.activate-success.com. We have a supporting workbook that has 100 pages, which is amazing to help and guide as you go through the work. And it really, truly has been our honor. And thank you, Sujata, for showing that workbook as well. That we will be back in a couple days to do our next segment, as we're doing all 15. And we welcome your comments. We welcome, what are you finding out? We'd love to hear your success story. So go out and activate success. Thank you. Bye for now.